Jim Ferguson is. Jim's got a lot of stories, but we're gonna limit it to this, Jim. But Jim is the owner of the Heart of America Beverage Company, and Jim and his wife Anna are loyal supporters of this institution, both from an academic standpoint and an athletic standpoint. Jim started the Jim Ferguson Diversity Enhancement Scholarship Fund, dealing with a diverse population here at the university. I want to thank Jim for his scholarship. And Jim's been involved in this school for many, many years. He served on the board of regents at the time and our foundation board of directors. But I'd like to call Jim Ferguson up here to tell you his story. Jim?
Thank you, Brent. Probably like most of the donors in the room, your decision to support Missouri State University and endowed scholarships comes from primary beliefs that have motivated you in your life, and that's my case at least. I should first tell you that I grew up in a very white world. Uncle Ben had nothing on me. I went to Greenwood, then I went away to Yale, I went to SMU, and I went to the University of Missouri Law School. And that entire time, I probably didn't have a total of 5 black fellow classmates or students or Hispanic students or anything. It was just pretty much Anglo-Saxon. And that's the way Springfield, Missouri was for those most of you know that have lived here all these years. I simply had no black friends to speak of. And I never saw signs of segregation or discrimination in Springfield, but my friends like Denny Wayne, former councilman, can tell you he saw them. And I guess I was just lucky enough that it never reared its ugly head to me. But at least I was in this kind of vacuum, and I thought as I grew up, diversity was very, very important. And in spite of that, I had, I guess, 3 basic factors or belief systems that came about in my life. And the first was from as long ago as I can remember, I believed in the equality of races. I didn't see any reason why people should be discriminated against or segregated because they were African American or Hispanic or whatever. And that probably was a result of 3 things. The first was my parents. From the time I can barely remember, both my mom and my dad said you treat all people equally. You should never discriminate against anyone. And I took that to heart. Secondly, I did actually have 2 African American friends. They were called colored when I was a child. And I had 2 of them in my life. One was a young man by the name of Charles Horn, who was a caddy where I played golf, and Charles caddied for me in tournaments. I used to play well. I don't anymore, but Charles caddied for me, and he was a great guy, and we were friends. And the second, and probably even more important, was Betty Jones. And Betty was our maid, but Betty wasn't really a maid to me. She was kind of a second mother. And Betty never hesitated to correct me when I needed it. She made me cakes and pies, and she spoiled me rotten, and she's been a lifelong friend. She recently passed away, but she had a great deal of influence on me. And I think the third factor in growing up, even though Springfield was a very white area, the 60s were a time, obviously, of the civil rights movement. And there wasn't a lot of evidence of that in Springfield, but when I went away to college and when I watched the newscast, you saw Bull Connor and all the horrible things in Alabama, got to listen to Dr. Martin Luther King, read about the sit-ins and the freedom riders and the buses in the South, and I think that had a profound impact on my life, which reinforced my belief that everyone should be treated fairly and given the opportunity to succeed. I think the next belief system or motivating factor was a belief in education. I was very fortunate. My parents had the means to send me to college and then on to law school, so that I got out of school, graduate school, in 1972. I had no debt. I had a law degree, and that's a wonderful thing to have, whether it's a college degree or a graduate degree. If you have that and no debt, it's a very valuable thing, and I thank them for that. And I think you have to be taught to hate. You can learn to love, and love, when people love you, you love people back. And without being taught to hate, race relations are much better, and education certainly helps that. And I think one of the most important things about education is diversity. I remember meeting a young man in law school who was of Polish descent, and he started telling me all about the festivals and things they had in his neighborhood in Chicago. I found that fascinating, and I always have, whether it's Italian, Polish, African American. I just really began to believe in the importance of diversity. And as you all know, then Southwest Missouri State, or Southwest Missouri, did not have much diversity. I'm not saying we have just a whole lot of it now, but we've improved a great deal. And I think it's very important in the education of anyone to meet people of different cultures and different races, different backgrounds. You can learn from that. So the second thing for me, in addition to the belief in equality and fairness, was just the importance of education in general. And then the final factor that led to me deciding to do the scholarship was just Missouri State itself. I spent 13 years on this campus. I told these young ladies tonight I spent 13 years here and never did graduate. And that's true, but I did graduate from Greenwood, which is where I was going at the time. So, but I started, and then I spent 6 years here on the Board of Regents, and as Brent said, I was also on the Foundation Board. I've had almost 60 years of loyalty to this university and what it means to Springfield, what it means to our community. So you put those three things together, a belief in education, a belief in diversity, and a belief in this institution, and I think it's pretty natural that out of that you would think, okay, what can I do? And scholarships seem to be the best way to do it. I've been blessed in many, many ways, my family, my wife, my children, and financially, and it just seemed a natural thing to do to help others. Not everyone has the ability to go to college and the ability to be able to afford that, but if they're given that chance, then they can succeed just as much or more than anyone else. So that's the reason I did it. I'm sure it's not very much different from the reason that you all do your scholarships. I'm excited about it and happy about it. I love being associated with Missouri State University. It's just a wonderful place, and that's my story.